we are going to do what we call an orientation into your research. What I've been told is many of you are still on the preliminary stages of conducting your research. And so I have today come on board, not alone, because many of you know me, and there's a proverb that says in our African language that if you do not travel, you always think your mother is the best cook, okay? So I've been with you in Ethiopia, and many of you have heard my voice, and many of you, and you have always thought that Dr. Frida is the only one. Okay, now let me bring you the professional cooks who bake the best cakes and who make the best food, injeras, okay? So we have with us today Dr. Evelyn Dache. Dr. Evelyn Dache is the chair of department at JKUAT, the School of Business. So I'll be inviting her to also greet you and say something. And also we have Dr. Titus Kisingu. Sometimes he calls himself Kissing You. You know his word, the last name is like Kissing You. Okay, that is his name. He's also, Dr. Dache is in the area of human resource management with a doctorate in that area, having being an expert, of course, in human resource management. Dr. Titus Kisingu cuts across two areas, which is entrepreneurship and strategic management, a doctor at the university at JKUAT. And of course, myself, I think you know me. So today I decided to bring in fresh blood, fresh people, fresh faces, so that you can also interact with them and learn more about research. So I want to welcome Dr. Dache, just to give a welcome note and remarks, and then we go to Dr. Titus. We always say ladies first. I'm not biased, so I have to choose the ladies first. So Dr. Dache, please proceed, welcome and greet the students, and then we go to Dr. Titus. And then from there, I'll guide you what you're going to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Frida, for having us on board. I'm excited. Seeing students, some of them have already muted their screens, so I may not be able to see them. But I'm very, very excited to know that we have gone global. Yes, I can see a Jerusalem, I can see Binya, Tamiru, and maybe others that I can still see on board. I'm very, very excited to just interact with you. Personally, I had a lot of interest in Ethiopia, had been coming to Ethiopia for some time, though not at the university. So I've been to Ethiopia. And I know you people are very good people. I think the only one that I know from Ethiopia is the injera, the meal injera. I had an opportunity to eat injera. So I'm very, very excited to be here. Actually, we just want to have a very interactive session. It's not going to be more of a class, but just your questions. We've come with very open-minded, and I believe you're also very, very open-minded. Maybe you can ask us the questions, what the issues are, but we'll just be guiding you basically. Now, what I want to say is that for us, somebody who chooses to go back to school is a very, very important thing. And most of the time we finish our coursework, then we start research. Coursework, we have been together, but research has to be an individual work. And this is where most of the students now really, really struggle. So we are just here to let you know that research is not difficult, and that we have seen many students go through research, and just to support you and help you develop maybe good research proposals, so that you can be able to come up with some good research that even when you put it on the online publications, then somebody will be able to look at it and say you did a good job. So congratulations that you are in this class, and congratulations that you have also concluded your coursework. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dache, for those wonderful welcome remarks. We move on to Dr. Titus Kisingu.
Thank you. Good evening, my brothers and sisters from Addis Ababa.
Good evening.
Yes, it is my greatest pleasure to be invited to be with you to learn on thesis orientation. And I want to start by congratulating you for your pass in your coursework. And I wish we will gain from this study. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. I'm picking 4 key areas: risk and insurance, HR, strategic, and leadership. Those are the main areas that I've had people talk about. And so we're just going to give a general introduction. Please note the points down. I'm going to introduce, and then Dr. Dache is going to come on board, and then Dr. Titus. And then after that, we are going to close. We can ask now questions, so that we're able to advise you. I want to echo what my colleagues have said. I want to congratulate you especially those that have finished their coursework. This is a big milestone. You have achieved a lot. Of course, the ones who are starting, like my friend Gutu and the others, Solomon, it's also a way of learning so that you don't make the mistakes they made. I'm happy you came because you're going to learn how they were able to do it and you don't make the same mistakes. So for those who have finished their coursework, it's a milestone because many started and they were not able to finish, but for you, you have managed to finish. Now, what is this research all about? What is the research that you're talking about? Now, every student is supposed to pick a research area that is, first of all, related to their area of specialization. What do I mean? I've had some students who are in risk. So you need to come up with risk and insurance topics that address the aspects of risk and insurance. I've had some students who are in HR. You need to address issues of human resource. There are so many issues: motivation, staff retention, recruitment, appraisals. Those in strategic management, competitiveness, okay, profitability, organization performance, and those in leadership. What leadership styles can we adopt that are most effective, and so on. So basically, in terms of when you're looking at research, we are trying to look for a solution to a particular problem, okay? Habesha Breweries, for example, which is in Ethiopia, has a problem of X, leadership, for example. How do I fit in my research to be able to address the problem that is there in Habesha Breweries? There are people who have talked, they're in an Ethiopian bank, okay? How can we address some of the challenges that the banking sector is facing? So research is more of looking for answers to the questions that we have created, which Dr. Dache will talk about, so that we're able to find a solution. You cannot conduct research where there is no problem. If there is no problem, there is no research. So the first thing you need to identify as you do your research, what is the problem that I'm going to solve? How am I going to fill that gap? Okay, how am I going to fill that gap? And that gap will be filled by now you looking at the research issue or area that you are going to focus on. Now, for my students, I always say, how can you learn? How can you get the problem? Research or read other people's thesis. Go to their work and look at what are the research areas, further areas for research they have recommended. That is one way you can get their areas. Number two, it can be the problems that are facing the society. I've had somebody in the health sector talking about COVID-19. The problem is, I doubt whether you're doing a degree in public health or nursing or medicine. So I know you might want to look more of COVID-19. Does it relate to what you're doing? So look at it in terms of what is the problem that you want to solve. Now, I would urge my students to start their research with what we call a concept paper. Please write that down, concept paper, especially the ones I'm supervising. What is a concept paper? A concept paper is a paper that you write telling us what is the concept. Sometimes it's called a synopsis of what your research will entail. What is the problem that you're going to look at? So we call it a concept paper. Begin by telling me, this is the problem. So you put there a statement of the problem. Number two, I need to see what are the objectives. I'll not go into details because Dr. Dache is coming to tell you that right away. What are the objectives of the study? I tell my students, don't do 10 objectives. You cannot do all the research alone. Don't do too many objectives. I'm sure Dr. Dache will tell you that. Pick minimum. I don't know what is the required, but I tell my student 4 to 5 is okay. 4 to 5 is okay. Don't do 8, 10. Those are too many. Pick objectives. Give us the research questions. She'll also talk about it. Research questions in brief of what you want to look at. And then I need to see some of the studies or researches you have reviewed. A table. Summarize a small table telling me, I've read this Frida's work. I've read Kisingu's work. I've read Dache's work. I've reviewed 5 scholars. You can look at 5, is it 10, Dr. Titus will guide us. Is it 10 globally and 10 locally? You know, within Ethiopia, maybe in the African context. Have a table summarized. I can share with the president the same, a sample of what that table should look like so that you can have a feel of how you can review your literature. Now, once you have that, you can give us a brief of the methodology you want. This is a small concept. You are thinking of what you're going to research on. The methods, how are you going to go to the field? How are you going to collect data? So when I talk of a small concept paper, it gives me a feel of what your research is all about. So it's a small paper extracted from the main paper. You're basically telling us this is the topic, this is the problem, this is the objective, this is the research questions. And these are the people who have done various researches on the same area, but I'm trying to use a different view to fill the gap. And then from there, a simple methodology, and even the theories. You can mention a few theories that you can use for the same. So all those that I'm supervising, I need to see a simple concept paper. For the others, I don't know how your supervisor will do, but this can help you generate your research problem well, and the supervisor will be able to understand it better. So I think I've just given a nutshell introduction. I want to hand over to Dr. Dache, who can add something small on what maybe I've left out, and then proceed. What kind of research? Because research, as you start, there is the concept paper, there is the proposal, and there is the project. Proposal is chapter 1, 2, and 3. You can note it somewhere in your books. Chapter 1, 2, and 3 is the proposal. Project is chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Dr. Titus will come in on the analysis part. He'll tell you on that. So as we analyze, note that you need to present a concept paper, number 1, present a proposal, which Dr. Dache is going to talk about, and then Dr. Titus will finalize with chapter 4 and 5, which is the analysis, to make it a full, complete project. So we have the concept paper, proposal, and project. Over to you, Dr. Dache, to begin with us on the proposal.
Okay, good evening again. Good evening, yeah. So I'm just going to share briefly about the research proposal. And just like you're saying, I'm a lecturer in research, and research is very, very interesting. And most of the times, just like I began earlier, we realize that students do coursework, they finish, but they are not able to complete research. Why? Basically, I always want to say they have not understood what research entails, because you're supposed to come up with some original idea, you're supposed to go to the field, and you're supposed to come up with maybe some information that is going to add to new knowledge. So what is it that you want to do? Now, Daftari has already told us, Dr. Frida has told us that you must start with a concept. Now, concept is like a mini proposal, but I want to open up the proposal by just looking at the structure. Some of these words, you know them. So I'll just be reminding us. I'll just share a simple screen. I know it is open, but I'll just figure out what is key for us. So just a minute if I can find it. So share screen.
Okay, as students, we move on as Dr. Dache is trying to open. If you have a question, note it down somewhere so that once Dr. Dache finishes with the presentation and then Dr. Titus comes on board, we can now have a session for questions as we try to respond. So write your questions somewhere. Okay, yes, Doc. So note the questions somewhere, and then we are going to tackle all the questions once we are done. Once we are done, we'll tackle all the questions. And it's better when you have more questions because they help us to understand what is it that you want to learn.
Okay, let me try it one more time. Now?
Yes.
You can see it, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think I just came up with a few, maybe a few areas that can be able to guide you. Now, when you start talking about research, usually I tell students to separate the two words. When you're saying I'm now doing research, then separate the two words from the word research. You're doing a re and you're doing a search. Now, search is basically now you want to go to the field to search for information, that you want to come up with a new idea, or you want to develop something and be able to give some information that is going to, maybe you can propose it, maybe you can be able to use it to add new knowledge, or you can propose it to be able to give you some new area of information. And why are we saying re is because you are doing it not for the first time. Other researches have been done. And not only that, it is also important because when you talk about research, you are going to base your research on other people's work. Now, I just want to talk about the research proposal. And I want us to ask, what is the proposal? I'll not read through the document. I just want to remind us, when you say you want to propose, now let's figure out if you are in a relationship. There's a difference between a proposal and a marriage. Before you marry, you must propose. Now, when you do a proposal, means you have not yet married. You are still proposing. Your proposal may be accepted or it may be rejected. So you are proposing you want to marry somebody. Now, the key questions when you want to propose maybe to a lady, most of the times I think in African tradition, it is the man who proposes to the lady. Then you go and say, I want to marry you. But most of the times they'll ask you, why do you want to marry me? And you'll have your own reasons, or maybe I love you, or things like that. The same happens in research. Even as you do research, it is important to understand that you are showing your intention to marry. Now, in a research proposal, you are showing your intention to conduct research. So a proposal is a statement in writing that spells out your intention to carry out a specific research in a given area. All of you, most of you have heard saying, I'm doing research in this area. Now, before you do that research, you must develop your proposal. So I'll not go through by reading all the notes. I'll just pick a few things. Why is it important to develop your proposal? We are saying it makes your people know that, oh, so you are now ready to conduct research. They want to know, what is it that you want to work on? You people already have titles. It provides justification. Why am I doing this area? So when you come to the people and you tell them, this is what I want to do, then there are so many things that comes into play, and therefore they start understanding what you're doing. Most important for us, you are doing a proposal so that your document can be accepted, can be evaluated, whether it is worthy of being done. And sometimes your proposal is supposed to show the areas that you really want to work on. Now, as you move forward, I want to make it very, very simple that when you're doing the proposal, it's just a 3-chapter document. Remember I said, if you're proposing, you want to ask your question, why? Why do you want to marry me? Now, somebody will ask you, the panelists will ask you, why do you want to conduct your research? So the 3 chapters, before the 3 chapters, you have what you are calling the preliminary pages of the proposal. Preliminary pages is not the proposal itself, but there are those areas that are part of the research that are going to help somebody understand your work. Key to those areas are things like declaration. Why are you declaring? You are declaring because you are doing some original work. So somebody needs to know that, yes, this is my original work. Apart from that, you can dedicate that work. Now, all that is preliminary pages. Most important in the preliminary areas is what you are calling the abstract. If somebody does not want to read your work, then they can simply go to the abstract and see exactly what you want to work on. So abstract, there's the table of contents, etc., etc. Those are just preliminary. That is not research. Those are areas that will enable you do your work so that somebody can be able to look at your document and be able to get to know. When I'm looking at the table of content, for example, where is my methodology page? They can look at that and they can be able to access it easily. So apart from that, we have said it is 3 chapters. Every chapter is very, very systematic. Chapter 1 is usually called the background. And I will use the issue of marriage again. If you want to marry somebody, it's important that you go and look out of the background of the person. If you want to marry a lady, you go to find out, oh, where did you go to school? How old are you? Who are your parents? So even in research, before you do research, it is important that you know the background of the information that you want to look out for. What is it that I want to do? So the whole of chapter 1, we're talking about the why question, but most important, the background of the information that you want to look at. Then we have chapter 2, which we'll call the literature review. Literature review, we have told you, you are doing research. You're searching from existing. So the existing is the literature that is already there. Are you sure that what you are doing is there? And if so, what is the justification? So literature review must be done by students because they're supposed to justify any information that you're talking about. For example, if you say there's a problem, how do you know that there's a problem? That's what researchers will ask you. How do you know? Then you say, I've looked at this document and they say there's this problem in this area. So in research, we don't say rumors, because if you just write without referencing, then you say you don't know what you're doing. So you must have some literature, which will be our chapter 2. Then you also must have your methodology. So the structure of the proposal are only 3 chapters. I'll make it very simple. I just highlight a few areas. If maybe after I present, then you can be able to pick key areas that you really want us to look at. So in the 3 chapters, we have background, we have literature review, we have methodology, then we have what we are calling the references. If you did literature review, then that means you cited people's works. And it is important that if somebody wants to see those areas where you cited from, they go to your reference page and find all that information. And in the last part of it is just the appendices, anything that you need to add to that area which is not part of the research. Like you can have your questionnaire, you can have an interview schedule, you can have your budget, etc., etc. But I think most important for us is the 3 chapters of the proposal. And that's what I want to put a little bit of emphasis on. So now you go to the chapter 1. Before we go to your chapter, we've talked about why the proposal, yes. Now let's look at the chapter 1. And I've put an asterisk on areas that are so key. Yes, you want to do your proposal, and now you want to write the introduction phase. And I've said the introduction phase is the phase that answers the questions. Why do you want to conduct this research? Why is it? Why do you want to conduct the research? Because if you want to marry me, then why do you want to marry me? What is the intention? So in this area, we are going to look at key areas like the background information, which shows us, yes, I know the person I'm looking at, or I know what are the information that I'm looking out for. Then we'll have the problem statement, and I'll put an asterisk on the problem statement. You cannot do research without a problem statement. There's research objectives or research questions, very, very important. I'll put an asterisk on those 2 areas in the background, because you're saying you want to answer the question, why do you want to conduct this research? If you go to the panelists, they'll ask you, why do you want to conduct a research in that area? Then you say there is a problem. What is the problem? Then you need to expound, and that's why you now need to do literature. Have you confirmed that there's really a problem? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Another key area that is important there is what we are calling the hypothesis. You must need to have at this level, because you can test your study. Usually we have what we are calling the null hypothesis, which shows that there is no relationship between your study variables, or the alternative hypothesis which says, yes, there's a relationship between one and the other variable, the dependent and the independent variable. Then you have the scope of the study, the justification of the study. Those are basic areas. Now I want to narrow down a little bit on the problem statement, because I've just figured out, because they say, if you look at the structure of the research proposal or the structure of research, step number 1 is usually the research problem, the problem statement or the research problem. Now, most of the time somebody says, if I want to do research, I need the title. No, you don't need the title. You actually need the problem. Why am I saying that? What then is the problem? And we are saying a problem statement is that which shows the reason why you want to conduct that particular research. And it will answer 5 questions. Any good problem statement will have to answer the question, why, what is the problem? First of all, you need to clearly state, what is the problem? Why is it a problem? When is it a problem? How is it a problem? And to who is it a problem? So the 5 W's of questioning is what we are calling the problem statement. What is the problem? Why, how, and when? Now, I'll give a specific example. Now, supposing you are a student, and then students normally like saying, I think the lecturer is a problem. Now, the lecturer is the problem. If I say the lecturer is a problem, then you start wondering, why is the lecturer the problem? Maybe you do your examinations and then you fail. Then you go to the office and say, I think the lecturer is a problem. Now, just like that. So now the person maybe in charge will be asking, what is the problem? Then you say the lecturer is the problem. Now, why would you talk about that? Now, I want to give you 3 ways in which you can write your problem statement so that somebody can understand you. Now, if I think Dr. Dache, who is my lecturer, is the problem, then the first thing I must need to understand is that, number 1, there is what we are calling an ideal. So you can write that down, ideal. Ideal simply means, this is what I expected. I expected that because Dr. Dache is teaching me research, and I've attended all my classes, and I've also written this, then I expect that I will pass. Now that is your expectation. So any good problem statement must clearly show what was the expectation. For example, he says, I want to do risk management. I want to do strategic management. Now, if I do strategic management, then what should I see as the outcome within the organization? That is the ideal. Then you go to what we are calling the actual. The actual is that you expected that Dr. Dachi will come to teach the classes, Dr. Dachi will give you the notes, Dr. Dachi will give assignments, and that Dr. Dachi will mark and you will pass the examination. That was your expectation. Now, what is the ideal? Maybe the lecturer did not come to class as often. Now, the problem begins there. Maybe the lecturer did not share their notes. That's another problem. Maybe the lecturer did not even mark assignments. So you say there is a series of problems, and here we are saying because it is research, you need to not only identify the problems, you need to justify what is the problem. And we are saying the lecturer did not give us this, they did not also do this once, they were supposed to do this, but they did not do. So what they were supposed to do is your ideal, what they did not do is your problem. And therefore you get to the third phase of research program, which you are calling the gap. Now the gap is, if all those things have happened like that, then what is it stopping you from getting? That's the reason why I need to understand. If, for example, maybe let me just use Samuel. Let's say Samuel has started a business because you're in a business class. You have started a business and you put in maybe 1 million shillings. You have your expectations. I'll spend a little bit of time on there so that when you understand, because it will take us all the way. So let's assume Samuel has started a business and has put 1 million. We all do business and we understand. What is the reason for doing business? I want to get some profits. Is that not true? Now, you put 1 million shillings. In 3 years down the line, your money is not at 1 million. You expect to get profits, and therefore you expect that it's going to move from 1 million plus the profit. So let's say in 3 years' time, you expect that it will be at 1.5, something like that. Maybe 100,000, something, 200,000 as profit. But 3 years down the line, you realize that your money is at maybe 400,000. Then you say, there is a problem. There is a problem. Now you can go back to those 5 W's of questions that I was talking about. Now, what is the problem? Then you say, the problem is because the money is going down. What is to who is it a problem? It's a problem to Samuel. When is it a problem? It's a problem because if this goes on like that, then is likely to close down. So all those things are supposed to be there. So when you're looking at any research, you must clearly identify, is there a problem? And once you have a problem, then you can be able to develop the research objectives. Now, I'll also talk a little bit about the research objectives because you're saying, yes, you have now identified you have a problem. If I have a problem, then now you break down the problem into chunkable. Let's say they started the business. Yes, they started the business. They're now making losses. Anybody who starts a business wants to make profits, but he's making losses. Now, what are your research objectives? Your research objectives will be the areas that you think you can manipulate. What is it that I can do to change the scenario from loss-making to profit-making? Anybody who starts a business wants to make profits. I want to improve. So if I'm already on the downward, then my research objectives will be what is it that I'm not doing right? Or what is it that I should do right? So maybe you can say, maybe he does not have trained employees. Maybe his location of the business was not right, because that one you can change the location, you can train your employees. What is it that I can manipulate? Maybe he does not do advertisement. So those are areas you can look at. So you develop sub-variables from the problem that you can manipulate to be able to influence your outcome. So in research, we have what we are calling the dependent variable, which is the outcome variable, and the independent. So independent is the sub-aspects of the objectives. And when you're writing your objectives, there must be things that can be measurable. For example, you say, there are things that you can change. There's things that you can be able to work around with. So you're saying, I want to change the location of my business to see if it influences. I want to change the motivation of employees, etc., etc. So when you're talking about chapter 1, the key issue is there a problem? And if there's a problem, what is the problem? Then you break down the problem into sub-variables to develop the research objectives. The same research objectives can be used to develop questions. For example, he's saying, does location influence profitability of a business? Does location influence? Now you're using questions. If I'm using questions, then I'm using question mark. If I'm using objectives, then I'm simply using statements. Then I'm saying, there is no relationship now if I want to use them into hypotheses. So the three can go together. So you develop problem, Then you come to objectives, you develop questions, and then hypotheses. Now, in hypothesis, we are simply saying you have not done your work, but you are saying, I think if I do this research, this is what I will get. I've not done the research to know whether location has an influence on profitability. But I know that location has an influence on profitability. That becomes your alternative hypothesis. Or your null hypothesis will be that there is no relationship between location and profitability. So in chapter 1, the most important aspect is that problem aspect. And with us, the problem, you break it down to variables, which we'll call the objectives. And with these objectives, you figure out what research you're going to do. The rest is what we are calling scope of the study, which I'm not going to talk much about. Scope simply means if I'm going to do this research, because you cannot say there's a problem until somebody complains and say there's really a problem. That's why you are saying, I'm going to do mine in a bank. If you don't have a scope, then you cannot do research. Research simply means if there's a problem, somebody must be complaining, some people or some individual must be complaining, and therefore you need to target those people to be able to do that research and collect the data from them. And then we have the justification. If I do this study, how will it be useful? Who will it help? Yes, I'm doing a study on maybe profitability. I'm going to help the owner of the business. I'm going to help the employees. I am going to help other people who might be interested in doing business in future. Once I put it on the shelf, somebody else can read and be able to understand, yes, this is what I found, and this is what is important. So the key question here is, why do you want to conduct your research? Why do you want to conduct your research? And if you do want to conduct your research, is there a problem? What is the problem? Why is it a problem? When is it a problem? How is it a problem, etc. Then from there, can I develop my objectives or questions and hypotheses, which is what is going to lead me to the methodology that I'm going to pick to do my study. So much for chapter 1. Then we go to chapter 2. Allow me to continue. You can write your questions down. If you move on, then you can ask as I move. We've said it is only 3 chapters. So chapter 1, what is? Chapter 2, now you are giving the meat of the story, because you're saying you are doing research. You are searching from elsewhere. Others have already done this work. You're not the first person who is going to do it. Neither will you be the last person. So it's good to compare and contrast. So you want to look at what other studies have been done in the area that you are now working on. So that is what you're calling literature review. And when you're doing literature review, you have to do 3 kinds of literature review. The first one, which you are calling theoretical, theories. Remember, we started by using a concept. Now we are saying a concept is something that is not very easy to explain in one word. And I can give you an example. You can say beauty. Beauty is a concept. Somebody can say she's a very beautiful girl. And somebody says, is she very beautiful? Then you say, then what is the meaning of the word beauty? People look at beauty differently. Now, a concept is something that can be broken down into different aspects so that you can be able to measure them and understand them in the same way. So when you come to literature review now, you want to dig deeper to understand your concept. If I'm going to look at risk management, then now I need to go to literature and look at what are the theories in risk management. If I'm looking at leadership, what are the theories? Now, the first area that you must do is what you're calling theoretical review. So you look at the theories that relate to your study and see how they are going to support your study. How they relate to your study. What are the sub-variables that are breaking down from? Actually, they can be able to guide your study so that you say, oh, I didn't even know this one was a variable. Now that I'm looking at, for example, if you're looking at motivation theory, then they say Maslow's motivation theory talks about the basic needs, social needs, so you break it down. So as you do that, now you start to understand. So this is how these things are supposed to be. So in theoretical review, you are simply looking at the theories that relate to your study. Then in the conceptual review, now you have identified the variables of your study. It's unfortunate I didn't put the meat into this one because I just wanted us to be very open. Now, remember we said you have the dependent variable, which is the outcome. What do I want to see when I finish doing my research? Somebody talked about maybe risk management and maybe organizational performance. If I want to see organizational performance and I want to look at risk management as a sub-variables, then I break down maybe the risk management process. And I say, which one is the most critical? that will influence organizational performance. Then now you want to check them. So when you're talking about conceptual review, you are looking at the variables that you have broken down to. In the case where I was talking about Samuel's business, then I said location is one aspect. Motivation is another aspect. Pricing is another aspect. Now you can look at those as the independent variables on profitability. Now, can I change my pricing if I'm going to do my business and conclude? So when you're talking about conceptual framework, then you're looking at the variables that you chose for your study that you want to work with all the way. So you must review them. You must make them understandable so that somebody looking at them can be able to read and understand them, etc., etc. And lastly, in that area is what we are calling empirical review. So theoretical is about theories. Conceptual is about your variables and how they relate to one another. And empirical review is about other studies that have been done in that area. Now here, you're more interested in not just the book studies, but you're looking at the researches that have been done. For example, somebody else has done the same research. Someone was talking about strategic management practices. Many studies have been done on strategic management practices. So go back and look at what were their findings. Somebody else did this in Kenya. What did they find? So you want to compare and contrast what I have found or what I'm going to do, or it's going to guide your study. So you must also do empirical review, looking at studies that also relate to the work that you are doing. Most of the time you want to look at recent studies. Theories can be a bit at age, but empirical literature, you want to look at areas that are a little bit new so that at least you can realize you're not doing it over and over again and reviewing something that has already been done. Now, critique simply means, yes, I've looked at theories, I've looked at conceptual, I've looked at empirical. Do I agree with these authors? Remember, when you put your document in publication, you automatically become an authority or an author. Now, when you're an author, it doesn't mean that you're absolute. Certain times you might say, according to this theory that I've seen, I think this theory is not good because there's 1, 2, 3. That's why we have theories and another theory and another theory. So what are you adding? Because remember, you as a researcher, what are you adding into the literature? Are you supporting, or are there areas that you feel that can be improved on? So you are critiquing that literature. That's what we are calling critiquing. And most important for us, I'll put another asterisk on the research gaps. Research gaps simply means I've looked at theories, I've looked at empirical, I've looked at that, and I still feel that my study is new. My study is unique. Yes, people have done researches on business profitability, but their variables were different. Mine is looking at these 3 variables, or the sector in which they did the study was different, or maybe what is new about your study. That's as much as these people have also done the same studies. What makes my study unique? And then after that, you just summarize the literature, etc., etc. So basically, why are we doing literature review? We want to justify the reason why we are doing this study. We want to ensure that we are not duplicating. Duplicating means we are not doing the same study that has been done. If somebody has done it, then why do it again? So it's important that you also realize that. So literature review is important. The theoretical, conceptual, and empirical also very, very important. And lastly, I want to talk about methodology. I told you it's just a 3-chapter document. Why do you want to do the study? Supporting document in chapter 2, and chapter 3 is how will you do the study? If you're given a go-ahead in chapter 3, how then will you do the study? Remember, I said, I want to marry your daughter. Then somebody asks you, why do you want to marry my daughter? Then they say, I love your daughter. But they say, but love is not enough. Most of their parents are worried and thinking, it's not just about love. How will you take care of my daughter if you marry her? That's the most important. Now, the same is with research. Yes, we can allow you to do the research, but how will you do the research? Now, that is chapter 3. So chapter 3 answers the questions on how will you conduct research if you're given an opportunity to go to the field and conduct research. Now, the key areas in this case are what we are calling 1, research design, 2, target population, 3, sampling, data collection. Actually, in chapter 3, it is all important. And that's why you're saying you're doing research methodology. Why is it all important? I'll give an example with research design. Research design is the blueprint on how you are going to do your work. It is like an, let me give, if you want to construct a house, you just don't go and start constructing. You first put it on a piece of paper and show that this is going to be the bedroom, this is going to be there. So how are you going to do this research? You must have a clear design. If I choose to do this design, then I must remain in that design and I must follow that particular design. Now, there are so many different types of design. For example, we can talk about descriptive. Am I going to collect maybe quantitative data? Then I can say that is descriptive research. Am I going to collect qualitative, where I'll be asking questions? When was the last time that this happened? You know, now maybe is it qualitative or quantitative data? Then that will determine the research. Or am I going to use both? Am I going to use interviews? Am I going to use questionnaires? That will determine the research design that you want to pick on. So everybody, even if you are to make maybe you are to make a cloth, you must have a design and say, this is the design I want to use. So in research, you must also have a design. Most important for us is the target population. Target population means, yes, you are going to collect data. But there's a difference between a population and a target population. Now, target population is the population that when you finish your work, you want to generalize the findings of your study. Somebody says, I want to do my study in the bank. Then the employees of the bank become your target population. Because if I do this study, then they can use my study. They can look at it and say, yes, we can benefit from this study. So they are not only the people who will use my study, but they are also the people I am going to use to collect the data. So target population is very, very important. You need to clearly show how or who is your target population with justification clearly, so that somebody looking at your work will say, oh, so this study was done in this area. Then we have what you are calling sampling. If, for example, you want to do your study in banks in Addis Ababa, then you realize that there are so many banks in Addis Ababa and you only have a short period of time to do that work, then you cannot do all the banks. So what do? You reduce the number of banks by doing what you're calling sampling. Now, sampling means you select a given section. So in research, you talk about probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So you pick out which area, which banks must I do? So you can do it purposively or you can do it randomly. Randomly means maybe you use like stratified random sampling, simple random sampling. So there are specific techniques that you can be able to use to select the population of your study. And after doing that, then it's time to develop your data collection tools. How will you collect data? Remember, I can go back to design a little bit, and supposing I said I'm going to do descriptive research, then my target population maybe could be 30. Then if I sample, okay, let me say 300. Then if I sample, I can use a formula. I get maybe 20. Maybe from 300 to maybe around 150. Then you go to data collection tools. You prepare the tools that you use to collect data, etc., etc. And lastly, you do the data analysis. Now, data analysis, I think Dr. Kissing will be talking a little about that, so I will not put more info on that. Now, once you conclude that document, remember you're doing the proposal, then you have the last page, which you are calling the reference page. Now, referencing shows the documents that you are able to use to write your document, whether it is the authors, maybe the titles of the document, the journal where you got those documents, etc., etc. So when you talk about referencing, you're talking about two things: the reference page and the inside text, the in-text citations. In-text means inside the documents when you're writing, you're saying, according to so-and-so, now 2015 or blah, now you are citing from the inside. So most of the time we talk about using APA citations. And we also look at things like the tables, the figures that you're using, the font size, document margins, etc., etc. And I think there's so much we can be able to talk about research, but I think with that, I would wish to rest my case and leave it at that. I cannot talk everything, but at least you have a rough idea of the proposal, and therefore I will just stop at that. But your questions will be allowed.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Dache, for that elaborate presentation on basically the research proposal, well articulated from chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3 of what you're supposed to cover in research. And so students, you can see that it's a journey. And I like you use the analogy of a marriage. When you want to marry, you propose. When you propose, you have to tell me, why do you want my girl? Why do you want this? So it's a proposal. But when you go to the actual field now, that is when you start the data collection. So this is a proposal. I think to allow, before Dr. Titus comes on board, I think we can ask questions, because if we go too much, they might forget. So I want to open the mics. I think we are doing well in terms of time. I want us to open the mics and ask questions. Can we ask Dr. Dache or myself or Dr. Titus a question? And then the last part is just analysis, how you analyze, which softwares you use, how you present that data. Dr. Titus will come on board. But can we have questions specifically on chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, or the concept that I talked about, or any other question that you have? Please, you can raise your hand. Samuel, I can see your hand. Proceed.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I have a question to Dr. Dache. I have 3 of them. One is, how many research questions are of good number? So if we are going to use research questions, how many is a good number for research questions? Second, can both research questions and hypotheses be used in one research? Can research questions and hypotheses be used in a research? The third one is, you talked of conceptual, the concepts and conceptual on chapter 2, and you were talking about variables, no? So my question is it only about variables, or can also be in the concepts, in the conceptual thing? Can you also talk of research questions? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want us to answer straight away? Can I answer first, or can I answer those first?
You can respond as the others are asking. Just continue,
Okay.
Doc.
Okay. Number 1, you're asking about the number of research questions or research objectives. And earlier on, Doc had said research is usually a simple document. You don't want to complicate it. So don't make many research questions. If you came and asked me 20 questions, I'd be very tired. So usually standard at this level is maximum 5, minimum 3. So 3 to 5 questions is within. That's okay. Now the other question, can you use research questions and hypotheses together? The answer is yes. Maybe the only one that might look like a repeat is when you're saying that you cannot use research questions and research objectives. So you choose to use research objectives, then you do hypotheses, because at this level, you are expected that you're supposed to do what we are calling testing your hypothesis. So at this level, you need your hypothesis, because you're going to do by like regression analysis, you're going to do correlation analysis, and without hypothesis, hypothesis simply means, I think that I'm going to find that there's a relationship between what I'd said earlier, maybe location and this. So those are your hypotheses. Then you might need to use both. And in your conceptual framework, you're asking, is it the same as the research questions? And the answer, yes. The 3 areas are the same. Your research questions also happen to be your research objectives, which also happens to be your research hypothesis. And as you go to the document, you realize that the aspects that you're looking out for in the conceptual framework, for example, now you choose to say location as one variable. Now that's in your conceptual framework. So it's one variable. Now you're going to break down location so that the person who is reading your document can understand what is this location. And then you're saying, can I look at a suitable location? Can I look at maybe an accessible location? What of a location do I want to measure? Are we together? So now that becomes your conceptual conceptual framework. So now you want to break down the variables to understandable levels so that somebody looking at them can be able to understand them. And this is what you're going also to look at what? In your research questions. So all this information is systematic until you finish your document. So I think I'll try to answer your questions.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, I'll also try to just echo what Doc has said. If, for example, your objectives were 4, Samuel, if you had 4 objectives, we expect you have 4 research questions. So you cannot have 4 objectives and you have 6 research questions. So they must marry. If you have 4 objectives, we expect you have 4 hypotheses. So they go hand in hand. You cannot have more. But you can bring in the moderating or intervening variable as long as you know how to test the variables. Okay. Now, Dr. Dache, I'm getting a question on the comment on the chat room. They are asking, this is Jerusalem, our good sister is asking, Doctor, can you elaborate the real demarcation between conceptual framework and theoretical review? Conceptual framework and theoretical review.
Okay. Thank you, Jerusalem. I believe I started by saying the areas that you have to do review on. Now, theories are already in existence. Theories are there. So you're saying, according to this theory about this person, so you cannot change a theory, but you can use a theory to guide your study. So you're not going to change a story. You're saying in this topic, and for example, if you're looking at motivation, then maybe your research is on motivation, then you can say, I'm going to look at Maslow's theory, I'm going to look at ERG theory, I'm going to look at any other motivation theory. Now those ones are already in existence, but you're just going to borrow from them. So you're saying this theory can help my study. But in terms of conceptual framework, then these are the variables that you personally have chosen to look at as a researcher. So you don't have to go the theoretical way. Now you have created, for example, Maslow's has 5 variables, but for you, you have chosen 3 other variables. Maybe 2 are in Maslow's and maybe 2 are from another. So you have created something new. Now that becomes your conceptual framework. And they basically relate to the objectives that you chose. So your objectives become your conceptual framework. Your theoretical framework is something that is already there in existence. But if you're looking at, for example, risk, then you cannot do motivation theories in risk management. If, for example, you're looking at leadership, then you cannot do motivation in leadership. So you look at leadership theories that are already in existence. Thank you.
Okay. Just a minute. Okay, thank you very much. Gutu?
Yeah. I'm asking you why we want to state 3 problems to solve. Why not? I want to solve 1 problem, for example, on my research. So let's just say the minimum statement of the problem is 3. Why I want to deal with 3 questions? I want to solve 1 question. Is it possible?
Dr. Dache, have you understood?
Okay, I will separate the 2 words. When you're talking about problem, you can only talk about one problem. But the problem can be broken down to something that people can be able to understand. For example, if you say the lecturer is not good, maybe the good is not measurable. Maybe the lecturer is not fair. So how do I know? So I'm looking at the fairness in terms of, the lecturer did not do this. So what are the variables of the aspects that you're talking about? For example, if you talk about business profitability, and you're saying what factors will affect business profitability? Now, the problem is 1. Someone is making losses, but you don't want to teach them how to make losses. You want to teach them how to make profit because that is the ideal. Anybody who starts a business wants to make profits. So if they're not making profits, then there is a problem. Am I right? That's what I gave. So the problem is just 1. They started a business to make profits, but now they're making losses. Now, based on that, you're saying there are certain things that you can manipulate. You're not creating more problems. The same problem, but what is it that you can do about the problem to solve it? So you're saying, can I change the location? Can I change the employees? Or can I change the management? Now, the same problem, not 3 problems. But the objectives can be more. Problem is 1, but objectives can be a breakdown of the same. So I believe that's the difference.
Okay, and then Solomon Abera has tried to write the question again. Solomon is saying, how can I align or to be matched? I think to match questions and objectives and research title. I think what Solomon you're asking is, how do you balance between the title, the research questions, and the objectives? Now, your statement of the problem is what is going to give you the area of research. Once you have known the area, you're going to devise, what am I going to measure? This study is going to be supported by what? Those are the objectives. The objectives are what research questions is what you turn the objectives into questions. For example, factors affecting business performance in Kenya. Okay, in Ethiopia, let me give Ethiopia. Factors affecting business performance in Ethiopia. There are various factors that affect marketing, financing, and so on. So what you do, you can look at, you measure financing. So when you come to the question, you just turn the objective into a question. How does marketing affect business performance wherever in Ethiopia? Don't ask yes or no question. You see, when you ask, how does it? Now you look at the financing. Is it the loan? Is it the amount you're given? Is it what? But if you ask, does financing affect? The answer is yes or no. We want more probing questions. We want to ask more. So that is how you marry. So from your, and not just your title and questions, I should be able to see everything up to the end, up to where Dr. Titus is going. From the topic to your objective, to your research question, to your conceptual framework that Dr. Dacha has talked about, because that is what you're going to do literature review on, to your questionnaire, I need to see those questions, to your findings. So you flow with them. If you had 4, I need to see 4, all the way to the end until findings. So you cannot have 4 and then you start adding 6. You marry one wife and then you start adding 3 others on the way. That is wrong. What Dr. Dacha said, there's a reason why we chose the one. There were factors that supported that. So objectives are guided by research questions and you build them as you go all the way to the document, the final document.
Great. Just like, allow me just to add on to that.
Yes.
It says when you also have the research problem and you're thinking, now where do I get my title? Actually in research, we don't talk about topic. We say my title of the study. Now, if you're looking at your title of the study, 3 things are important. Someone should be able to see clearly the variables of your study. Remember we talked about the dependent variable, which is the outcome, and the independent, which is the one that you want to manipulate. So both dependent and independent should be seen in the title of your study. Also, the scope of your study. That's why Doc is talking about factors influencing performance in the banking sector in Ethiopia. Now, those factors are the independent variables. Banking performance is the dependent variable. Ethiopia is the scope where you're going to do the study. So you cannot have a research topic that says, my topic is finance. Then you don't know what you're saying. You must be able to bring out clearly the variables of your study up to the scope where, because you're saying, if you have a problem, someone or somebody must be complaining. So who is it? Or where do you want to conduct this study? There must be a place. So the 3 aspects will help you come up with a title. So already they're in the problem statement, and most of the time you'll find that they're in the general objective. In objectives, you have what you're calling the general before you break it down to specifics.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'll usher in, unless there's any other last burning question, any other burning one on the research, any burning one, we will continue to Dr. Titus. Now you have gone to the field, okay? You're presented. Now what Dr. Tachi has showed you, you have to present to a panel. You can either decide to present it, we'll agree online, or we are going to come to Ethiopia and we sit as panelists and you present. Once now, their verdict you'll be given. You can either pass with major corrections, pass with minor corrections, or fail and resubmit your proposal. Fail and resubmit. So the work is yours. It is you to make a decision. What do I want to research on? What do I want to study? So that you're not told to resubmit your work. Resubmitting means you go back again to the statement, topic, research, all that Dr. Dachi has taken you. Now, once you're given the go-ahead, what do? You go to the field, go collect data. You said you're going to go to the bank. You're going to target 200 employees, give questionnaires, come back, do analysis. Now, when you do analysis, what do? Now, Dr. Titus, I hope you're ready. Dr.
Yes, we are
Titus
ready.
is going now there. That is what Dr. Titus is talking about. So proceed, Dr. Titus, now.
Okay.
Are you with me, Doc?
Thank you.
You can
Yes,
see the
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I can see, but the forward and the backward.
Dr. Titus wants to take you through now analysis. And this is where most students have problems. Why? Because this is statistics, what many of you don't like. This is the mathematics part of it. So what I'm saying, Dr. Titus will tell us how to analyze. Most of us will use SPSS, but I know you did statistics. There is something we call correlation, regression, ANOVA. I know you don't want to hear these things. Multiple regression. How do you analyze them and make meaning now? Now, the data that Dr. Dacho was talking about, factors affecting employees' performance in the banking sector in Ethiopia. Now you come and see, are these factors making sense? But where are the figures? You start looking at the figures and saying, 20% said 1, 2, 3. The mean of this was this, the standard. Now, this is what Dr. Titus wants to share with us. So Dr.
now,
Shen, yes, correct. Thank you.
the slides.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Make them bigger now. Just put full slideshow. Yeah, there
Okay,
we are.
thank you, Dr. Frida. Yes, I want to take us through chapter 4 and 5. I want, okay, now basically the thesis is an advancement of the research proposal. So it will consist of chapter 1, introduction, chapter 2, literature review, chapter 3, research methodology, and in addition to those 3 chapters, which are for the proposal, the ones Dr. Dache has taken us through, in addition, you will have chapter 4, research findings and the discussions, and the chapter 5 will be summary, conclusions, and the recommendations. Summary, conclusions, and the recommendations. So these will be the contents of chapter 4. The heading will be research findings and the discussions. Research findings and discussion. And it is advisable to split the chapter into sections. And of course, every chapter must begin with some introduction. So because it is chapter 4, it will be numbered 4.1, introduction, 4.2, response rate, 4.3, pilot study results. Now there you present the results on validity and the reliability. Then 4.4 will be demographic results. Now 4.5 will be descriptive results, where you present the means, the standard deviations, the percentages, etc. Now 4.6 will be the diagnostic test results, where you present the results on the assumptions of regression, multiple regression analysis. 4.7 will be correlation analysis, of which it could be the Pearson correlation analysis results. 4.8 will be regression analysis results. It could be simple regression or multiple regression analysis results. Now, 4.9 could be the hypothesis test results. Now, these are the hypotheses which had been formulated in chapter 1, in 1.4. So now you present the test results, and the 4.10 could be the discussions. Now, because we cannot go through everything, but in a nutshell, the research findings and the discussions chapter is the chapter of the thesis of the research project that presents the findings and outcomes of the research and the reasons for that particular results.
Doc, are you there? Dr. Titus, are you there? Yeah, Dr. Titus? Okay. So let me stop sharing from his end. Let me see. Okay, just a minute. I think we lost him. I don't know whether he come back. I think he had done this. He had shared with me this. So this is where we were. I'll try to take it up and Doc can capture, and then if he joins in, he can continue. So with this is the research findings and discussion. So in this chapter, we are basically looking at the findings and outcomes of what you found in the field. So here you present these in terms of texts, figures, and graphics, okay? Text, figures, and graphics and charts. So you can have the tables, the pie charts, the graphics, and so on. Now, the results basically tells us the outcomes and the findings of the study. What have you found out? You did a study at the banking sector. How many women bank at Ethiopian Bank, for example? What is the agenda? So they present the data and the findings in an orderly, analyzed way that justifies the methodology that Dr. Dache talks about. Because you see, we had questions that we needed to fill, and we sampled. We cannot study the whole bank. Dr. Dache mentioned that. So among the banking sector, who are these people that we are going to interview, and what is the feedback that we are going to have? Now, please note that thesis or project is written in past tense. Tenses. The one that Dr. Dache talked about is present. Is it present tense? So these you're going to present in past tense because you've already gone. And
proposal is future tense.
Future tense. Okay.
Proposal is future. It has not been done.
Proposal is, yes, it has not been done, but this is past. Yusuf, Yusuf, I'm seeing you're raising your hand. Yusuf, can you say something? Are you asking a question, Kadir? Yusuf? Okay, you have not even connected, so I'll lower your hand until you ask. I've just seen it on my screen. So please note the tenses. Many students failed on that. They don't change the proposal the way it was supposed to be done. Now, research findings and discussions also describe the findings in a simple way with the help of data. Don't be complicated. Don't be complicated. And what we do, you bring in figures and tables. Now, tables are listed from top. What we mean, if you're having the title of the table, you say table 1.1, gender analysis. For figures, if it's a pie chart, you put below, figure 2.1, demographic analysis. So tables on top, in APA, figures are put below. Now, the discussion. What does the result or data from the experiment mean to us is described in discussion? So you have the finding, 50% were women. Now, can you discuss that? Don't just give us the figure, tell us. So the function of discussion is to, number one, interpret the results in light of what was already known about the subject. Number two, explain new understanding of the problem after taking the results into consideration. And lastly, explain how the results answer the questions under study. So if we had issues of gender, I'm just picking gender as an example, female or male, you present the result, and then now give us an analysis. You can say, according to the World Bank report, now you give further discussion on the same so that you're able to support your study. I don't know whether Dr. Titus, you're back. I'm just trying to go through your slides. Dr. Titus? Okay. So the results and discussion, and Dr. Dache, you can interject if you want, is that the difference between the two is that the results, these are the core of the research or the research paper. And this is the data that is generated by doing research after validation and verification of what is written. And the results are important in answering the objectives. Remember, we had objectives, we had research questions. And these are the key findings of the research. But discussion, you are stating the cause for a particular result, discussing the meaning of the result. So if we are saying 20% were women, 90% were men, what is the meaning? Is it that more men bank than women? You justify that. You state clearly what their significance is. What is the importance of that number? Okay. Why is it that they are 90? For example, we did one research with IOM we were doing, and we realized in the coastal community, the time we were doing the research, more men were out. What was our conclusion? Because of the coastal community and also the Muslim culture, women mainly stay at home. Men are the ones who go out. So when we were doing the research, we did not find the women out. We found the men within. Okay, somebody's asking, Dr. Apsar, you will share? Yes, we will share all these, what Dr. Dacha has shared. Now, you also compare the results with the theoretical expectation. Theoretically, Abraham Maslow, what did he say? What have you found? Is there a correlation or no correlation? Is there a link or is there a gap in the two? Now, presentation of data, tables and figures, photographs, drawings, graphs, flow diagrams are often used to present details, whereas the narrative section of the results tend to be used to present the general findings. So what are we saying? Present the table and figure, below it come and present the information. Numerical data can usually be presented more effectively in tables and graphs. So if you have numbers, like when you have a table of education, diploma, degree, present it either in a table format, that is what we are being told, present it either in a table format or graphs than in text. Don't start saying 20% I went to diploma, 60 were masters. Present it in a table format or a graph, it is better. The order of presentation of the results should be either chronological to correspond with the methods, or from the most to the least important. So you can decide to adopt, but I'm happy Dr. Titus had mentioned the format you can use up there to be able to adopt flow of from demographic all the way, correlation all the way. Adopt the format that Dr. Titus shared. Now, a table, this is an example of a table. A table is an organized set of data. You can see we have the class interval, we have the frequency, and we have the cumulative frequency. This is how the table should look like. There is one that has another column here. If you go to SPSS, you find there's another one that has, is it percentage cumulative frequency, which is more of a repetition of this column. Don't put this one, just put the 3, okay? Put the 3. And so these are the cells that are there in the table. Of course, we are going to share these notes with you after this. Now, for the chart, this is an example of a chart. You can see it has the Y and X axis. It shows the various categories that are here, and it gives us a key here that tells us what is series 1. For example, here you can have one district, or one banking sector, or one education institution. So purple, if you know the color purple, you can check here. So a chart is a graphical representation of data in which the data is represented by symbols such as bars in a bar chart, lines in a line chart, or slices in a pie chart. So you can have either a pie chart, you can have a bar graph, or you can have a line graph. And a chart represents a tabular because numerical data. So you can see this. This is what I was saying. You present it from top, from below. You name it from below, but for the table, you present it on top. Now, graphics, if you have like pictures or maps or so on, graphics are visual images or design used to, for pictorial presentation of data. So with these examples are photographs, they are drawings, they are diagrams, they are symbols, okay? So with this, what happens is that you can present it in this way, as you can see, the way it has been captured. You can have a district, for example, a district of a region. You can have the whole of Ethiopia, and you show your region of study in a map. So you also can be able to present it as a graphic. Now, the purpose of the results and discussion section, they answer this question. What's the answer? What's the answer of what we had? For example, in what Dr. Dache mentioned, what are the implications of your answer? So if you're talking of 60% were men, 20 were female, what is the implication of this? For example, if you talk of in the education sector, are engineering courses occupied by women or men? Okay, so these two questions are the object of the results and discussions, respectively, as you can see. What was the answer? 90% say loans do not help us in the business sector. What is the implication? So can we stop giving loans? Can we adopt something else different? So that is the basis of that. I'm seeing somebody asking, can we get the recorded version? Of course you will get this also. Now, research findings and discussions, we are also looking at it in terms of preparing the results and discussions. We have the processing of data. Processing of data. What do you mean? You have the questionnaires from the field. Now you need to do some things. You code them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which ones were filled? Sort them. Some were not filled. You leave them. You check what to do with them. Once you process that, you analyze the data. Now, this is where you bring in what we call SPSS, Statistical Package for Social Sciences. Currently, I think we are using version 22.1, if I'm not wrong. That's the current version. So you come and do the analysis. And I'm happy the processing, he has been able to capture it. First of all, you start by editing questionnaires. So you examine the collected raw data to detect errors and omissions, to correct these where possible. For example, somebody might not have filled a question. They might have left it empty, okay? Once you now check, you edit through, what you do is you code. You also do the coding, okay? You do the coding, okay? So I'm being told somewhere is telling me there's SPSS 23 now. Current is 23, thank you, 23 version. So you code. Coding is the process of assigning numerals or other symbols so that the response can be put into a limited class. So you code them, you put a number, and then you classify convergence of raw data into homogeneous group in order to get meaningful relations. And then later you tabulate them, arranging of classified data into concerns and logical order in form of statistical table. So this process has to involve you getting now inside the SPSS software. I'm happy, Samuel. I think you sound like you understand how it's done. Okay.
Let me just interject. Is Doc back? Let me interject in that area, Doc, if you allow me.
Yes, yes.
In that part where we are calling processing operation or processing of data, I think is important because remember, I did not go into the depths of now you've collected your data, but remember I said you develop your tool for collecting data. Maybe you have used your questionnaire, you have taken them, you have gone and collected your data. Now you have them. So the first thing that you look at that data is to now edit the data. Maybe before you even edit, we were calling it cleaning the data. Sometimes you have given 50 questionnaires and then you realize that 40 have been returned. But even with these 40, some of them are not completed. Now, if you start entering a questionnaire that maybe there were 20 questions and only 5 were answered, then you will not be able to get results. So you start by cleaning that data. Cleaning means you remove what is not necessary. So questionnaires that are not completed are considered spoiled questionnaires. So you can say, while I got this number of questionnaires back, then I needed to do this. Now editing, you want to check, is there something that you can be able to understand about what they have written? Maybe somebody ticked somewhere, male, female, or something like that. So you're just looking at them and figuring out, do I need to edit certain aspects of this questionnaire? So you label all the questionnaires. For example, you label them number 1 to number 30. Now you have 30 questionnaires which are now okay. Now coding simply means that statistical package does not allow you to enter the word female. It does not allow you to enter the word male. And therefore, in your questionnaire, maybe because you had used maybe clustered questions, or maybe because you had used, you now number them. So you say, for this particular question 1, because I had male, I will call male 1 and I'll call female 2. So when I'm in question number 1, I enter 1 for male, I enter 2 for female. So anybody who is female, I enter 2. Anybody who is male, I enter 1. Now that is what we are calling coding. Classifying means you also classifying the units according to the groups. Remember, we had maybe questions like maybe what we call, we had maybe the type of questions that you had asked, because some of them are nominal questions, some of them are ranking questions. So maybe you ranked them and said, take your age category between these numbers. So you now will classify them according to that, and then maybe you tabulate them. So as you do the SPSS, it is important that you understand the documents that you get from the field, that they will not come very clear. You might need to understand it before you start entering into the SPSS. So I'll let you continue, Doc. Doc, you're muted.
Dr. Titus, are you back? He was telling me he didn't know he went off. I just told him he was not around. Okay, doctor, let me check on my... Okay, so we just continue with Doc sharing until he comes back, if he's able to join the beta. Now, of course, people were asking, can we get the recorded version? Yes, we are going to share. I'll send it to the university management. People asking, can we get Dr. Dache's slides? Yes, we are going to share Dr. Dache. Somebody is asking, can we get Dr. Taita's slides? Yes, we will. So we are going to share all these. That's the importance of knowledge, so you don't have to get scared. Now, so we have reached at that point where we were on this. So let's continue. Now, statistical measures, some of them I think are, I would have preferred Dr. Titus to handle, because some of these are statistical analysis. Like I said, statistics is not a cup of tea for some of us, but we will try. So you can adopt various statistical measures for analysis, okay? So one, we have what we call measures of central tendency. I think Dr. Dache tried to call Dr. Titus. He's trying to write me some messages. Just tell him to log in back kindly. Yeah, he's trying to call me. So measures of central tendency. Here we have what we call the mean, the mode, the median, okay? The mean, the mode, and the median. I'm sure through your statistics class, you have been able to handle some of these aspects of mean, mode, and median. If you are not sure, please ask the lecturer who taught you statistics to guide you through. So one of the analyses that Dr. Titus focused on was this one. So how do you come on board and bring in the mean aspect, the mode, the median? This is just running it on SPSS and you're able to get. Now, number two, you can look at the measures of dispersion. And measures of dispersion, you can look at the standard deviation and the variance here, okay? The standard deviation and the variance. So with measures of these also, you can obtain it from SPSS, but I'm sure you are also taught how to identify the standard deviation, Now, and then measures of relationship. You can do various types of relationship. I think you are told this, you can do the correlation, okay? The correlation analysis, or you can do the regression analysis. You can either do multiple regression analysis, and you can also do the t-test and the z-test, okay? Please, Dr. Titus, when you join in,
He's back.
Doc, are you back?
Mm.
Yes, I've just admitted him.
Yeah.
So you can do either the measures of relationship, which is the correlation, the regression, and you also do the t-test or z-test. So these are some of the ways in which you can analyze. Students always ask, how can I analyze my data statistically? So you can do the measures of central tendency. Thank you, Dr. Titus. You're baptizing me with fire to talk about statistical analysis, which is not my cup of tea every day. But let me just finish what I was saying, and then I hand over to you. So sorry for the disconnection. So you can either adopt the mean, mode, or median, which is a basic kind of analysis from the SPSS. And then you come to the measures of dispersion, where we have the standard deviation and the variance, and then you can look at the correlation. I think the relationship that exists between the variables, which can either be multiple regression analysis and so on. So Dr. Titus, please take over. We tried with Dr. Dache to do your work.
Yes, thank you. Am I back?
You're back.
Yes, am I back? Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Can I stop sharing? You share?
Yes.
Okay. Please don't disappear again.
That is serious. A lesson learned.
Next time we need to check your network completely.
Yes,
but please,
because
guys, yeah, I can, as he's sharing, this statistic is not very easy. That is why I'm saying walk the journey with somebody who has done statistics to help you. Do experiments. I think Samuel told me during the last time I was in Ethiopia, he is able to do these things. So try to analyze. Oh, sorry, Doc, let me make you a co-host. Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now you can share. You are able. Sit with somebody who understands how to do the analysis so that you are able to know how to analyze. Otherwise, it can mix you up. You can take it to a contractor who you pay a lot of money. And what are they going to do? They are going to get another thesis from the University of Ethiopia, put it in your document, you go and present, and the panelists will realize you copied. Okay, Doc, you're sharing my face. Okay, there we go. Yes, we can see you now.
Now,
So we are
now, Dr.
make it
Frida.
bigger. Correct.
Yes. Dr.
Continue.
Frida, please remind me where I had lost. Which part?
While you
Up
are
here?
away, we tackled statistical measures of analysis, but you can go back maybe one slide in case you feel there's something you needed to emphasize. But that's where we were. We have tried to analyze that. Maybe you can start there.
So I got lost
correct.
there.
Start there.
Okay,
yes.
very good. Okay, thank you, Dr. for assisting me. And I need not to add much on that. So in chapter 4, you divide the chapter into sections according to the objectives. Dr. Frida, am I audible enough?
You are, Doc, we can hear you. Continue.
Yes. So you choose one best way instead of presenting the same data in several ways. Do not present the table and the figures in the text form. Don't present them at the same time. So tables and the figures should be clearly labeled. For tables, you label at top, and for figures, you label at the bottom. For instance, table 4.2, suggesting that it is the second table in chapter 4. Figure 4.1, suggesting that it is the first figure in chapter 4, maybe figure 4.1, response rate. Each table should be given a name. For instance, table 4.2, validity results. Table caption are always placed above the table, while figures are placed below. Now, on chapter 5, the last chapter of the research thesis or project, the heading should be summary, conclusions, and the recommendations. Summary, conclusions, and the recommendations. And again, for this chapter, you break it down into sections. 5.1, introduction. 5.2, summary of major findings. Why summary of major findings? As per the research objectives. For instance, if you had 4 independent variables and 1 dependent, you will have 4 subsections. 5.2.1 for the first objective, 5.2.4 for the fourth research objective. 5.3 will be conclusions, and again as per the research objectives, such that 5.3.1 is for the conclusion on the first objective, and 5.3.4 conclusions on the fourth objective. Now 5.4 will be recommendations. I have skipped it. There is some oversight. Between 5.3 to 5.41 should read 5.4 recommendations. And again, you break them down into 3 sections. 5.1, policy recommendations, which of course will be 3 in number, which will be 4 in number, such that there is policy recommendation on the first objective, the second, the third, and the fourth. The same applies to the managerial recommendations, and finally, areas for further study. Finally, I want us to go to closing remarks on data analysis. What is the criteria for choosing a topic? This one you've been taken through by Dr. Dache. So the research topic must be the one which you have selected. The topic must be within your interest, not just interest, within your area of study, the degree you are studying. The topic must be within your specialization. If it is Leadership, it must be on leadership. The topic must be in your ability and the competence to tackle the necessary research problem. Number 5, the research project must have undefinable limits to suit your available resources. Number 6, the research topic should be researchable and manageable. And 7, must be completed with a reasonable amount of time. Number 8, the solution must consist of original, where we talk of originality, critical, and reflective thinking. The topic must be significant, making some significant contribution to knowledge and to the present and to the time and the situation. The topic should contribute to the overall development of of the world. The topic the project must produce a solution, endeavor to come up with a solution, and advocate for changes in the present order of things. Finally, the do's and the don'ts of a research thesis, the do's and don'ts. One of the most important here, the don'ts are the ethical issues in research. For instance, number 1, do not plagiarize somebody's work. Do not ever copy text from the published work. It is a capital offense in thesis writing, and somebody can be jailed. Somebody's degree could be withdrawn, like that case in Nigeria. Always write in your own words. The other do's, please refer to the ethical issues in research. Now, what about the do's? It is always important to remember to select a topic which can help you and your future aspirations. Remembering that the only good dissertation or thesis is the done thesis. Finally, what are the common issues of research students? Why do many students spend so much time in the research proposal and the thesis stage? Because of 1, lack of motivation in the research, lack of self-confidence, poor time management, lack of focus or direction, limited support, stuck in the comfort zone, fear of failure, taking risks, and a lack of relevant experience. So please, my brothers and sisters, don't get a victim to these situations. And the last point on our discussion is the secrets of successful research students. What should I do if I want to excel in research? Secret number 1, care and maintenance of your supervisor. Remember, supervision is about marriage. So always be committed with your supervisor so that you work with your supervisor successfully to achieve your goal. Now, secret number 2, write and show as you go, which means shut up and concentrate on your topic without, remember why I'm saying there should be need to shut up. Remember, to ensure the originality, another student might also get your idea and present earlier than you, and that could be seen as plagiarism to some extent. Secret number 3, be realistic. Look at evidence for that research problem in order to get a solution. A significant and original contribution. Endeavor always to make that original contribution, remembering that a small step in advancing existing knowledge is key. Secret number 4, say no to distractions. Say no to distractions. Do not give up. And 5, it is a job. Secret number 6, create a plan on when you want to finish your thesis. Get help. Secret number 7. Number 8, keep perspective. And number 9, expect to make mistakes. And finally, you can do it. Thank you, Dr. Frida. I think we can stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Titus. Thank you very much. Now, I think the key secret is that we were students like you, and I want to encourage all of you. What Dr. Titus is telling us is very true. The secret of successful research students is that we were there. We did it, so you can also make it. We are not using petrol or diesel, and you guys are using something else. We are using blood, and of course, you are able to do it. So my suggestion would be, yes, Titus, Dr. Titus, click stop sharing so that I'm able to.
Finally, please remind them to remember the analysis is based on the scales of measurement. So if it was ordinal, these are the only permissible scales. Like it will be the mode, median only for ordinal. If it is for nominal, it will be the what? Mode. And thank you, Doc. You can pick up from there.
Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Titus. I know analysis or statistical analysis is not easy. It's not easy at all. But with help with other people, you can be able to pull through. So are there questions touching on the statistical part, the chapter 4-5? At least Dr. Titus has enabled us to go through what should be covered in each section. And of course, we are going to share this material with you. So can we have questions if they are, and then after these, we are closing. So I think we should be closing in the shortest time possible. Questions, please, if there are any. But I would urge that you try to practice on how to do SPSS analysis. Try to practice how to do SPSS analysis. It will help. Yes, Deriba?
Yes, in the case of this statistical analysis, we see that descriptive in statics in the case. But what about the inferential statistics? Is it help us, or this is either for our standard now?
Okay. So Dr. Titus, I don't know whether you're there, and Dr. Dachi, they're asking inferential statistics. How do you analyze it, Dr. Titus? Inferential statistics. Unmute yourself, Doc.
Okay, now, for the data analysis, both for the inferential and for the descriptive, you process the data using SPSS, Statistical Package for Pure, for what? SPSS.
Statistical Package for Social Sciences.
For social sciences. And so for the descriptive, you calculate the mean, the standard deviation, the percentages. While for the inferential statistics, you can conduct ANOVA analysis, you can conduct the correlation analysis, the Pearson correlation analysis, and finally the regression analysis, including the hypothesis testing, the T test and the Z test. This is the way to understand the SPSS. Is you go to the, you can get a video, study from a video, go to the Google, then you click on the video side, SPSS, you write there the SPSS procedure. You will get all the steps. Indeed, it is the SPSS which helps you to analyze. Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you very much.
Let me add something on that.
Yes.
On the analysis, the difference between descriptive and inferential. Now, when you're doing descriptive analysis, we are only looking at the variables without comparing them or measuring them against the independent. So you're looking at all the independent variables. For example, if you are looking specifically, for example, we talk about maybe employee motivation was one variable, and then employee performance is the dependent variable. So in descriptive, you are looking at the measures of the independent variables only. So you can check the mean. What are people saying about employee motivation? What are, how do they rank? So for example, if you're looking at mean, you're seeing most of the people saying 4 out of 5, then you're saying most of them agreed. If they're saying 3, it is an average. So you are trying to understand the variables on their own. But inferential statistics is whereby you are looking at both the dependent and the independent. You want to look at how the two overlap with one another. So that's the most important aspect of it. So inferential is now you're comparing how does employee motivation affect organizational performance. Then now you can be able to see that. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the correlation analysis, the regression analysis, and the hypothesis testing, because now you are comparing the two variables. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other question on analysis? I think for analysis, you might require another whole session to just run through SPSS, how to log in with your computers. That one you might need to, especially in Ethiopia, if you have a lecturer who teaches statistics, you can try and organize with a lecturer because you need to do hands-on, computer open, key in the data, code, put, run. I think that's the best way of trying to do it, and then you derive the tables and the pie charts that we are talking about, okay? So any other question? Any other question? Okay. So we are going to share the slides for Dr. Dache and also Dr. Titus. And also this meeting is recorded, is also recorded. So I'll try to derive it and I can share it with you so that you're able to pick any issue that you might have missed out. Feel free to reach on us, especially for research issues, in case you have any questions. Everybody has their strengths. Dr. Dache is there. She's always willing to help. Dr. Titus, of course, we have our own students in Kenya, but I'm sure they are willing to help. For my students, now this is to my students, the ones who are doing research, concept paper should start flowing on my email. Please, my students, I need to see the first concept paper and then we start. I wanted us to have this meeting, which to me is very important, because it opens the eyes to know how research can be tackled, how research can be approached. I'm sure your view now is different, but at the end of the day, you'll be able to handle the questions in the best way. So is there any burning question? Any burning question or the last questions? Okay, so it will help us to understand what research is all about. So any burning question, any one last burning question before I close this? Before Samuel, can I hand you over the mic, please, on behalf of the students? Please say something, Samuel.
Okay, thank you. I think on behalf of all the students, I would say to Dr. Dache, Dr. Kissing you and Dr. Simba, asante sana for your time, for sure. I mean, taking the initiative to give us an insight. I'm 100% sure that I think our view has changed from what we know to something completely broader than what we thought we knew. So I would say thank you so much. And also I would anticipate my thanks for being open even to assist us in the future, even if we are not designated or assigned to you all. And I think I will say to all of you, our Kenyan professors, helping us in all, on behalf of all the students, thank you so much. Asante sana. Sukumwema.
Thank you. You nailed it completely. You nailed it. Usiku mwema, to those who don't understand, is saying have a good evening. And asanteni sana means thank you. Thank you. Mamo taught me how to say thank you in Ethiopian. I forgot how it's done. But in it, you say what? Masi? Okay, it's a bit difficult, but whatever it means, we are grateful. We'll also be sending you the notes that the PowerPoint that Dr. Dache has presented and Dr. Titus, and also the recorded version you share with the university. So I think, to me, my students are ready to do research, and I'm sure they'll do exceptional research, because right now they have the knowledge, they have the hands-on, and we have the right people. What I want to say is, that just like we have said, I think Dr. Dache started the analogy. Research is like a marriage. When you start with me, don't start hoping to Dr. Dache, to Dr. Who, to Professor Who, to stick. Let us unify this marriage till to the end. The marriage will come to an end when we put that cap on you and we graduate you. Number two, when you feel like giving up, when you feel like this is the end of the road, always look at why did I join this master's program? What was the reason? And you have to finish up to the end. Ask yourself those questions. We almost gave up, especially for us in our PhD. It was not easy. Some of us felt, how much salary are we going to get? What is the value? I can tell you today, we were just discussing it in the office with Dr. Titus and Dr. Dache. The PhD might not have given us monetarily rewards, but societal recognition is high. Before anyone speaks, I'm told, doctor, can you speak? Even in my own community, some people say, I've read the biggest books because from the village I come from, because they hear you have studied all the way to the doctorate. So there is certain things that you get. Of course, other things are packaged with it, but there are certain people consult you on what their children should study. People think you have read so many books, but at the end of the day is you open your heart and you help other people so that you're able to do well. Lastly, Google Scholar. Please remember that. I mentioned that during my teaching. Some of us use Google. Avoid using Google, adopt Google Scholar. It will give you refiner kind of research. And then anti-plagiarism has been mentioned by Dr. Dache and Dr. Titus. There are various types. You can use Turnitin, Viper.com, and others. Try and check what your university has or what your workplace has. Turnitin is very common. You can also adopt that same. Dr. Dache, your parting shot. Parting shot, Dr. Dache, and then Dr. Titus, and then we close. Parting shot.
Okay, mine is to really appreciate the students. I'm very, very excited to have met them, though virtually, but I also believe they're passionate about research, and I believe they're going to do very good research. Now, the good thing about research is that when you do research, it's like lighting a candle. You don't put it under the table. So we are looking forward to reading your researches. So everybody should be able to do research that when you send it out there, then you'll be happy. 20 years down the line, when maybe your children are reading the same research, they'll be excited about it. So please read. The problem with students sometimes is they want to write before they read. In research, you must read before you write. So read and write good research. We wish you well, and we hope to see you online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Titus Kisengo. Okay, Titus, Dr. Titus, as we finish.
Okay, thank you. My last comment is that it is advisable to select a topic which can help you with your future aspirations. Select a topic which can help you with your future aspirations. Thank you and God bless you.
Okay, thank you very much. God bless you all. Jerusalem, I can see your comment. It's a very attractive and well-managed orientation. Thank you, doctors. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And yes, Samuel, I can see. I know we can stay here online till 9 o'clock. No, for you guys, you said 3 till 3, as you say 9, or up to 8. 8, you call it what? 8 o'clock, you call 2. 2, yes. So for us, it's almost, we need to watch the news and know how the politics are going on, how COVID is treating us, and other things in our country. I read some articles, what was also going on in Ethiopia. I hope everything is back to normal and everything is going on well. So we wish you the very best from Kenya, and we ask that you be blessed, and as you do your research, pick it up with confidence that you can also be able to do it. Visit our website, for example, to be able to read more work and more researches and so on. So God bless you all. Have a good evening. And for my students, let's meet next when we agree. Thank you so much and good night, okay? Thank you, good night. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you so much, Dr. Dache, Dr. Titus. You're the best. You're the best. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I beg to end the call. I beg to end this Zoom meeting for us. Thank you so much. Bye. Okay.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Okay.
You are the best students.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, bye. We need to end.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.